Hello, everybody. How are you guys? I feel sheepish, I'll be honest. I felt like with Tuesday night comfort hour, I should always be faithful to be there for you, even though we didn't have the huge amount of people watching live, but every person counts. So I'll tell you the story. It's Thursday morning, and I'm catching up. Two Tuesdays ago, I had dental cleaning, just a routine thing. And my mouth was pretty numb. I think they went right into a nerve. I'm not blaming them, it just is what it is. Um, but I'm still numb, not fully numb, but my tongue is still kind of numb. Week, well, about 10 days later. So um, it'll be in God's hands. There's a lot I'm learning from that. I guess the story there is I thought, well, maybe I'm supposed to talk less. Maybe I'm supposed to eat less. Having a numb tongue does make you mindful of that area of the body. Except when you don't think about it, then it kind of goes away. If I don't move it, I don't notice it. So I get to practice mindfulness, whether to let this numb tongue kind of bother me or to use it for good. I mean, there could be really good that comes out of this if I end up having this the rest of my life and I use it for good. It'll be make me mindful of what I say with my mouth and how I use my tongue. I'm not in pain. Um, I will say though, there's parts where something hot or wakening up, it feels a little bit painful at times. But and knowledge doesn't always help. Knowing something about trigeminal neuralgia, which I've worked with, it's a horrible, debilitating, painful disease, which is also called the suicide disease. I don't know who comes up with labels for things, but that's not helpful. Um, but the mind that's very overactive, overthinking starts to go down there. I hope I don't have that, and it's like, I've just got to put these things in God's hands rather than just my own. But the good that can come out of this is I really could end up losing weight, just being mindful. So I think it's really important to look for the good in any situation. We've been talking lots about that. So that wasn't the only reason why I didn't do Tuesday night. And to be honest, I didn't know how to communicate this with you all through a message on the website. I need to research how to do that so that if there are people who are wondering, well, just what happened. But here's another aspect to this. A good friend asked me if I could go hear a speaker that Tuesday night, and I thought, well, I hemmed and I hawed. I went back and forth, back and forth. I decided to go listen to the speaker, and it was actually well worth it. Last Tuesday, what happened? I was prepared to do it, but then I had a client emergency. So I decided to do that, and I was still numb, but I don't know. So that's my apology. I don't want to make excuses for my failings here, but this is kind of part of the story. And I don't take this all so serious that I think that people will just die if they don't get to hear me speak. Hopefully that makes you laugh. So I had some time today. I thought I would catch up. Boy, there's lots of things that I can share. One is, it does seem to be an important topic of how do we help students. I haven't totally prepared to present that yet, but I'm working on it. I think there could be some great value, a few thoughts, great value if people got together, maybe online or communities, people who had different levels of comfort in terms of getting together, kids getting to get with each other, sharing ideas of education, The other thought is I think if we just push a reset button, like what is it that we want? Um, how do we want to teach our children? Like, what is it that we're wanting to do to accomplish? Um, we could accomplish that by starting fresh. Like, what is the education we want people to get, and how do we want them to be 20 years from now? I think designing an educational experience around that wouldn't be a bad idea. So anyway, I'll share something with you. I have a craft. I took up knitting. So I knit for fun. So this is going to be a Mr. Rogers sweater eventually. I like the color, and I got it inexpensive in Idaho. It was like I didn't even know these things exist, but the mill ends of something. It's like the end of a big mill, whatever that is. But it was like $3, like $4 a skein. So that's going to be the most inexpensive sweater, which actually makes me doubly happy. Knitting is actually quite good for us, for our brains. I haven't met a knitter that doesn't find it extremely relaxing. Um, the term basket case comes from this idea that in a hospital, when people were in an asylum, or asylum originally meant serenity and peace. And so, unfortunately, it has a bad name now, but it was a place to go where there was peaceful, like we're seeking asylum, seeking peace. But people would basket weave baskets, and it actually helped them calm down. And if you look at the brain, a lot of the brain is, the the pedunculus, I think it's called. But if you go online, you'll see that there's this, all the parts of our body are mapped out on this. And hands are huge. A lot of other things are small, but hands take a huge amount of part of the brain. Um, and it makes sense. We use them all the time. And think about it from a stress point of view. We fold our hands, we wring our hands. I notice this, I can't help notice when I'm working, not with average people, but my clients, I turn on being a therapist, and I notice if they pick their hands, they just do this. And I do this. Kids, will come with a piece of paper, or I'll take a straw, wrapper, and fold it. There's something comforting about that. Yeah, no, it's the most interesting thing. And probably, people that play video games with thumbs and fingers, it's doing a hand-eye coordination that's calming them down, or maybe speeding them up. But now I'm playing with the paper. See, now if I knit, I end up with a product at the end. Yeah, I discovered knitting about 9 years ago, maybe longer. And it was about the same time I was doing neurofeedback, and I lost 50 pounds. It was the farthest thing from my mind. I mean, I just did not think that I would be knitting. In fact, I was down at Seattle at the Pike Street Market, and my son and I were walking in and out of shops, and I walked into this yarn shop, and I said, well, there's nothing to see there, and walked out. Little did I realize a month later I would be trying to find yarn shops, and found it totally fascinating, the colors, the types of yarn. Yeah, no, it's funny what you don't know. And I had clients that were knitting in the lobby. Some men were knitting, and it's like, what's with this? And they said, no, it's extremely fun, extremely fun. And I then knitters, if you're knitting in public, which I don't really do much, but it starts a conversation. People start asking you, hey, what are you knitting? What are you working on? It's really a strange thing. It's like a knitting community. And they're almost I'm prejudiced, but I haven't really met a mean knitter. um, yeah, maybe there are, but I just never met them. And when I go into a store, like a yarn shop, I get immediate attention because I'm a male. And I have to be careful. I don't want to attract all this attention from females, but it is kind of funny. Yeah, you just get immediate attention. One of the funniest things this lady said to me, it was kind of funny. So anyway, I was knitting hats. In fact, here, I'll show you a hat. This is my latest. I just think this is the coolest yarn. Hopefully the light does this well. Anyway, I was knitting my first beanie. I was just going around and around and around and around. It's just really easy. It's just one loop, just keep on knitting. And I didn't really know how to close it up. And the first thing the lady at the counter says, well, and this is what happens in knitting stores. You can go to any knitting store and just ask for help, and they just help you. It's kind of like a bar in that, like the Cheers experience, you know, the TV show, you can just walk in and they know you. And you buy things from them, and I've gotten more free help. I offered to have them help me. No, and some will ask you to come to a class, and I've done that as well. But anyway, this lady says to me, well, what directions are you using? Like a pattern. It's like, oh, I don't have a pattern. And she says, oh, that's right. You're a man. You wouldn't follow directions or ask for directions anyway. I thought that was pretty funny. Since then, I use directions. And directions are funny. There's so many knitting metaphors. One, you know, when you're doing a complex cable of something and all that, you just follow the directions. And you think, how is this going to turn out? But it does. You just do the directions and it just does it. When you're doing a sweater, you just go, it seems overwhelming, really overwhelming, but you just follow the directions and you don't even have to worry about the parts you don't know yet. Just knit the pieces you know, just do it. And you read the pattern a couple of times. And it's basically a knit stitch and a purl stitch. It's just those two things. And if you know how to do that, then everything is built on that. So it's simple. It's a real simple process. I do believe in classes. I took a sock knitting class, my first class, and I was nervous. And it's weird, all these things come up, like knitting in front of someone. Will I do it good enough? And no one's criticized my knitting, and knitting doesn't really have a right or a wrong way. There's effective ways, but everybody knits different. You just, and the funniest thing is, when I was trying, and these are all metaphors, you don't, I mean, if you want to get into knitting, contact me and I'll try to help you there. But what's funny is knitting has this thing called tension. And if you're tense, it comes out in your knitting. It just does. But like when I was beginning to learn to knit, I was doing something that was so tight. It's like I almost felt like I had to take a hammer to pound it through. I thought, this isn't fun. I had no idea. I was learning off the internet. Once I realized that, no, it's simpler. It's so much simpler than I was making it. I guess I was developing neurons to be able to see what a picture did or someone on video. And once I got it, it's like, well, gee, that's nothing. Now I could knit. And I've been practicing knitting with my eyes closed. Because the reality is, people who were blind, some of the jobs they would do would be knitting. And you would think, what? No, what happens is their fingertips, the ability to read Braille, no, they would be able to know what stitch. I kind of felt bad, like, gosh, could they ever see their work? But I guess they would get the joy of knowing they're producing a product for someone that could be beautiful. They may not see the color, but they would know the texture. Gave them something to do. So enough about knitting. But seriously, if people are interested, reach out to anybody to learn how to do it. I do believe that it helped me stay not stress eating. It helps cognition. It's kind of like a puzzle sometimes if you're doing a pattern. It makes me have the same brain feeling as Sudoku or Sudoku. I can never say that. Um, yeah, a lot of fun. Um, a lot's happening in the world. I think we've gotten used to this new normal of the world seems to be kind of not stable. But I do think that after, oh, let's say it hit the fan maybe February. I mean, for me, I was at a conference in January when I learned about the coronavirus. But here we are 10 months into this. And I think now most people are adapted to, okay, our world is a different world. How do we cope? How do we um, deal with all this? So I've been meaning to do this for a while. I've been talking about 12 steps and how it relates to anxiety, but I thought how interesting it would be to apply the 12 steps to the world events. And rather than say coronavirus or political war back and forth or civil unrest about the riots, I'm just going to say the phrase like, what's happening in the world? Okay. And I do think that there's an aspect to the disease. We'll call it just addiction in general, but, and I'll confess to this, I was prone to this. Like, I wanted to see what was going on, like curiosity. I wanted to see what did they say next? What are the numbers for the coronavirus? What did that politician say? How bad is Seattle? And so I would do my work, then I would come home and during lunch and want to see what happened in Seattle today. Now, I was maybe a moderate wanting to know this, but what's weird about it is after prayer and meditation, I realized there is a strange sense of control that my being in the know gave me this control. But if you pray about this long enough, you realize me knowing something or not is not going to change anything. I can know about how, say, like a debate went. How is that going to change my mind? If I knew it wasn't going to change my mind, then why watch it? But it didn't keep me from watching it. So then I asked, well, why am I watching this? How useful is this to me? Well, it seemed to be entertainment. I'm not sure if entertainment is the right word. I'll confess there's probably an aspect of that, but there's another aspect of, well, I kind of want to know how bad it gets. If someone got sick or has a stroke or is carried out, or, there's this weird distraction for this. So we could say that addiction in general is I want to numb feelings, okay? Numbing feelings. I don't want to feel what I want to feel. So I could drink, which I'll take a drink of this fake coffee here. I could drug, and I'll be bold a little bit. I do think that there's illicit drugs, but I do think some people don't want to feel their feelings, and so they take a prescription drug. And there are many doctors out there happy to give them to them. Now, when I say make a bold statement like that, there are plenty of people who could feel really bad, like you're saying anybody on an antidepressant, I'm saying is trying to numb their feelings. I'm not saying that, and I'm not saying that there's probably not some good use for medicine. I'm just pointing out that I do think that it's important for all of us to ask ourselves, am I really wanting to deal with issues, or am I wanting to just have immediate relief? That's all I'm saying. We could go spend money. We could be vague about money, meaning I spend money that I don't have and I'm not quite sure how much money I have. I hence let's go buy some toilet paper, which is quite old now. But it gives us that sense of feeling secure. Um, well, sexuality could be used as a drug. Work could be used as a drug. Gambling could be used to numb ourselves for sure. Food could be used to numb ourselves. And perhaps a few other things. But if we start getting into things like, well, golf, I'm numbing myself with, or knitting, or jogging. Well, there's not, some of these things are helpful and pleasurable, and but the problem is to make it into an addiction. People do that when they want to minimize the real addiction. They say, well, my drinking is no different than his playing golf all the damn time. Well, no, that's not. No, people don't leave each other for golf. People don't hide, and feel ashamed from playing golf. So we have to be careful with what we call an addiction. There are a few cases where exercise addiction goes off the rails and the person is exercising 3 times a day and they're putting really their health at risk. But it's a low. It's not common. So 12 steps. The first step says that we admit we are powerless over alcohol, and our lives have become unmanageable. So what's beautiful about step 1 is it puts us in our place. There is this grandiose sense of self that I can really fix everything in my world. Even psychology unconsciously, unintentionally promotes some of this. Like I can just fix anything if I set my mind to it. There's some truth to that. But what about things beyond my control? And I think the biggest challenge we have is we try to take too much responsibility for things that are beyond our control. And so watching TV to see what's going on with the world or politics is no, I don't have any control over politics. And there was a lady who's a motivational speaker, has a method of healing. I'm not totally sold on her method, but she said one thing that I thought was fascinating. She said, there's God's business and our business. It's like, that's cool. And our business is just anything that I can choose, my own responses, my own thoughts. I can challenge some of my own thoughts and begin to think happy if I want to. I can do certain processes to help me feel better. But what anybody else is doing, politics, she says, is God's business. And I thought, well, that's really but there's a lot of truth to that. I may be able to vote. I may be able to even campaign or put something on the internet. But other than that, what's going to happen in the world of politics is really God's business. And God can, and I mean this, I don't want it to be misconstrued, but any of us could depart this life like that. So if God really didn't want a particular person in office, they could be gone. And if one gets into the Bible, which I won't get into now, but I think there's definitely Bible verses that suggest he sets up leaders and authorities and that he turns the heads of kings so that he influences people. And it's hard to imagine sometimes when you see really bad, evil rulers like dictators still be allowed to exist and to harm lots of people. And people support them. But this is the aspect that there's free will. So can I control any of that? No, I can't. Yeah. And I think the danger of that is I'm trying to control all the things I cannot change. And I won't look at the things that I could change. So hence the distraction that I'm numbing my own pain, say like of a coronavirus experience or world at large experience, like feeling, I'm avoiding my own difficulties by focusing on the difficulties of others, like focusing on Seattle would be a good example of that. How is me watching what was going on in the summer going to help my personal life? One has to ask themselves, and am I numbing myself? And say like I won't confess. I mean, I'll share what's appropriate, but I'll exaggerate some of these things for effect. Like say like I'm totally angry. How dare those people riot? What's wrong with them? Like extreme judgmentalism. Well, that's just using emotion to get mad at something else that really doesn't help me turn my anger towards something productive in my life. So when I have the awakening, I admit I am powerless over the events in the world. Or you could put I'm powerless over the situation with my children and my life. The situation meaning they're at home and I have to find a way to educate them. I'm powerless over the economy and my life has become unmanageable. I'm powerless over, and we could be even precise enough to say I'm powerless over my inability to help myself in this situation with my job. Or say like my sugar numbers are going up with diabetes because the stress of seeing what's going on and it's really affecting my nervous system. And I feel so out of control wrapped around the axle. So frightened. And then if one looks at their sugar numbers and they're going up, and I've had my sugar numbers go up, and I'm not even diabetic, but it's like I'd like to try not to be pre-diabetic if I can help it. And you see a number go up, it's like, that's really going to help stress, so then it cycles. So thankfully I pray these prayers that remind me of who's in control. I cannot directly control my blood sugar numbers. So my health has to be in God's hands. I could do everything right and still end up with some cancer, heart disease, or whatever. Does it mean I don't do anything? No, because that would be very all or nothing. It's the same thing as sobriety. I could try not to drink today. Well, good luck on that. If I surrender and work the steps, it's easy to stay sober. So same thing with overeating or lack of exercise or panic attacks or a depressed state. I have to admit that I'm powerless over the situation and my life is unmanageable. So and the unmanageable piece is, so there's two aspects. Powerlessness, meaning I just don't have the power. Powerless doesn't mean helpless. It doesn't mean that I lay there and I guess I drink because I have no power over it. Or I'm helpless. No, it means I really am powerless over it. And the AA book speaks to this. It says, our dilemma was lack of power. That was our dilemma. We had to have a power by which we could live. So when they use power, they're not trying to depersonalize God. What they're really emphasizing is God's power, God's energies, to be exact. We can experience God's energies, and when you do, it's like life transforming. It's just like a different experience. And for those who have had addiction, where they have tried like 3 failed treatment centers, they tried working the steps, but they're still white knuckling it. They don't even know, and they're trying harder. Well, trying is not the 12 steps. Getting out of the way, admitting powerlessness, like, okay, this power of alcoholism is bigger than me. So politics is bigger than me. There's principalities for those that are Christian and powers of the air, we could call them demonic forces, whatever, is beyond me. So what makes me think that I can fight things in my human strength? I do think it's really important for anybody suffering from, a psychological issue like anxiety or depression to not just see it biologically. I think that's just a mistake. The materialistic model is that we're just material matter and there is no spiritual dimension. And I think that that's a problem. There are so many things in life that can't be explained just to materialistic means. I think it makes a lot more sense to suggest that, not only are there biochemical processes, but there's electrical, like I do EEG. There's energy that people pick up from each other. Well, emanate, what's the right word? We have about 60 watts of electrical energy coming out of our brain. The heart is 60 times that amount. So there's research when you get together with someone in a good mood and they have good heart rate coherence, which means their heart rate variability is beating in a pattern that if it was graphed out, it'd be very smooth, kind of like rolling hills. But if you get angry or frightened or very stressed, it becomes jagged, kind of like a seismograph. And you can see on a screen that just by breathing and focusing on your heartfelt breathing, I think we talked about this, and thinking attitude of gratitude, like some kind of compassionate thought or grateful thought, it smooths that out. So there's electrical, there's biochemical, but there's a spiritual aspect. It makes sense with addiction. Like, why are all these smart people, like really, really smart, really strong-willed, and they still die from addiction? It's because they did not ask God for help, to put it simply. God loves mankind, but he's not going to force his love or his help onto anybody who doesn't want that help. So it requires, according to the 12-step people, you have to ask him for help. So this leads us to step 2 and 3. So 2 is, I came to believe that there's a power greater than me that will restore me to sanity. So to broaden that, it's like I come to believe that there is a higher power. There's God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, who has not only created this universe, and it's pretty vast. It's out there in light years and all that. It helps put things in perspective. There's the whole planet Earth, and then we have our country and continent and state and Seattle, and it just gets smaller and smaller, but it helps us to realize who's really in control of everything. He's not controlling, but he certainly is in control. If I tap into this power, so first of all, I believe that this power exists and is loving and willing to restore me to sanity. 2, and there's an aspect of faith to believe that he would help me. That's step 2. 3 is to ask, to turn my will and life over to the care of God as I understood God. As I understood God phrase has to do with the aspect of I don't have to quibble about who God is. God is so loving. He will reach out to anybody who reaches out to him. They may not know he is who he really is. Sometimes it takes many years. It took me, I was an evangelical Christian for 20 years, and it was a good start. But I didn't really even realize what I didn't even know until I became Orthodox Christian. And so there's just, and even there, that's been another 20 years, but there's still so much more to know about God. And I think there's a great danger of us putting an image of what we think God is, and then we judge God, and it's like, well, I don't want God in my life. Well, we'll see how well that works. But 12-steppers just encourage people to not define God. See, if you define your own God and your higher power is this, red truck or something, the group, well, no, that's not a higher power that's going to help you stay sober, in my opinion. But if you reach out to God and say, God, please help me. I have no more good ideas. I am lost. I'm not going to try to figure out anything. So if I do this with the world, like I'm not going to try to figure out politics. I truly don't think that politics are going to save us. I don't think that there's going to be a society that will be perfect and that people will be perfect. Um, yeah, I just don't think that that's where the real solution is. It appears that hardship can actually draw us closer to God in the midst of all this. That if I got everything I wanted in life, I might not reach out to God because I would feel self-sufficient. I would have everything I wanted. So turning my will and my life over to the care of God, I think for those trying to get sober, the danger is a lot of people are trying to surrender just the addiction. And that's not the wording there. You surrender everything, the whole enchilada, just everything. And so then I don't run my life anymore. I ask God to come in and empower me, to guide me, to help me to do His will and not my own. So prayers that 12-steppers pray is, God, your will, not mine, be done. In fact, it's so precise that they don't even suggest praying for anything you want, because they would see that that would be selfish, and we'll talk later about how that works. Some people get some peace if, at this point, if you're drinking, drugging, sexing, spending, gambling, trying to fix others. Oh, there's another addiction, codependency. It's often so that I can feel peace. Like I want liquid peace here. But if I'm sincere, I don't have to be perfect, but if I'm sincere and ask God to reveal Himself to me, I'll begin to have some kind of peace. And I see this not every day, but every month. Someone who may or may not know God too well just says, okay, I'll try this. God, please just let me know you're there. Something usually happens. And, it's never the same way every time. God knows everything. Here's an interesting thought. And we'll put it in the context of people who have a loved one who has addiction. And let's put it in the context of Tommy, who's 33, living with mom and dad, smoking marijuana, maybe dabbling in psychedelics, and the parents are scared, maybe using opiates. They come to me and say, Eric, what do we do? Tell us what to do. I have to be careful not to be too quick. I mean, people are scared. I'd be scared. They come in thinking I'm going to have an answer for them, because they do deep down feel that we could be enabling Tommy and he could be dead at our hands, because we're just keep on feeding him and he's still using drugs and he may overdose someday in our house. On the flip side, they may feel like we need to kick him out. All we're doing is enabling him, but then he could be dead in a week because we kicked him out. What do we do? This is what I say to them. I say, first of all, let's just assume God exists. Okay, and a lot of people believe there is someone who created this universe. Let's assume this God is kind, loving, only wants good for the world, even though He allows evil in it. If God were evil, God forbid, but I don't think I'm committing blasphemy by saying that, the world would be a pretty bad place. It wouldn't be, in the midst of the darkness, you can go outside and still see a sunset. You can see flowers growing in cracks of sidewalk that tell us that life just wants to be there. Babies can be born, and you can have joy in the midst of hardship. I think that God reveals Himself through our suffering. But if God knows exactly what Tommy needs, and this doesn't say Tommy's going to give up his life to God, but let's just say that God knows what Tommy needs. how am I going to know what the best way to participate in that plan except by prayer and asking God? So the best thing I can do, getting nice and warm here, the best thing that I can do is asking God for direction. To say, God, please forgive me. I tried to help Tommy in my own strength, and look how well it turned out. It's a mess. And if I say, please reveal your will to me and give me the power to carry that will out, it works really well. Same thing with the world. If I have a plan for the world and I want the world the way I want the world to be, so that riot shouldn't have happened, or the governor should have done this, or the president should have done that, and all that. Oh, so that's not a place of humility, Eric. That's a place of you having a plan for everybody. And the AA book talks about that. It talks about this director. It says that most people try to live by self-propulsion or self-powered. This is in chapter 5, how it works, pages 58 to 88 in the AA book. If you're interested in this, try to get a traditional AA book. Many AA books are being reprinted, but they're not page number synchronized. But it's like a director who wants to run the whole show is forever trying to arrange all the actors, the ballet members, the orchestra, the lights. If everybody would just do as I wish, the show would be great. By the way, because I have that plan and world doesn't operate that, that's what makes me mad. This is what makes me resentful. This is what makes me fearful, because I have a plan for the world. See where this is going? So, it says that we have to be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. On that basis, we're almost always in collision with somebody or something, even though our motives are good. It says that in trying to make our arrangements or try to control the universe, our actor or the director may be kind, considerate, patient, modest, self-sacrificing. He also may be mean, egotistical, selfish, and dishonest. But as with most human beings, he's more likely to have both traits. Well, that's the classic addict, but you could also say that's kind of the average person. But addicts seem to have this more. So an addict could be a very kind, considerate, patient, people-pleasing, give, and they're all dishonest because they're not really telling people what they really think. So then they get really, really, really mad when they can't take it anymore. It's kind of like holding one's breath. So they can be mean, egotistical, controlling, dishonest. So it says, still the play does not suit him. Admitting he is somewhat at fault, he is sure that other people are more to blame. He becomes indignant, self-pitying. I forget the other word, maybe resentful. See, this is the give me a break. I deserve a break. The world is so bad, I won't say bad words, but so bad. I deserve a break today. So little do we realize, those that struggle with addiction, that it's these things of trying to control the universe that's the roots of addiction. It's us, and it says this, us trying to play God. So step 3 really is surrendering to God and giving up the script, giving up the plan, saying, yeah, no, I don't want anything anymore. It's easier to do that when your life is now drilled into the ground by your own self-will and you have nothing and you're scared and there's nowhere else but up, and you just have to give up trying to run your own life. It has been said that addicts don't have too weak a will. They have a real too strong will. They just can't give things up. So we will make ourselves sick, literally, by trying to control things we cannot control. versus surrender. Think about getting a shot. It goes so much better when you just surrender to the person giving you the shot. With counseling, it goes better. Now you have to trust the person you surrender. Actually, I'm nervous about saying that because I think we should be always mindful what a therapist is saying, but it does help if you have a trusted pastor, priest, loved one, mentor, and a holy person, or doctor, counselor, I suppose. The word patient, like being a patient of someone, is the word surrender. And there's probably an aspect of us being patient is the act of surrendering. But yeah, I heard that first when I was getting a surgery. And they said, well, the words patient means to surrender. So you're surrendering to them with the scalpel there. There's truth to that. You just have to let go and let the surgeon do the work. And I guess I can laugh about this. This is funny. So I think my first surgery, I says to the doctor, now you're going to try to do a good job. He says, yes. Oh, why would he not? But I knew I work in a profession where you see people are people and they do make mistakes. And there's a lot of people that I've heard things where the doctor's going to do the surgery on the wrong arm, and you're right on it this arm or not this arm, or I even had family members that I think at one time were doubtful of some of my experiences, and then they go, well, that was kind of an unfortunate thing they had with their physician. So we have to be kind and patient to all people and understand that everybody's a person. So how is my saying to the doctor, you're going to do a good job, going to help anything? I know, I'll just stay awake during the surgery. See that control thing? So to be a patient of God, to let God be the holy physician, to surrender to his holy will give you peace. You'll have so much more peace than you can ever imagine. And once you get this, you can use this for anything. So if I admit I'm powerless over America and the world's become unmanageable and I become unmanageable, two, I'm going to surrender my life over to the care of God. Well, I first believe that God exists and he will care for us, even if we've done wrong. I mean, people that believe, oh, God's mad at our sin, but there are countless examples where in the midst of sin or a nation that could be committing grave sins, people repent and they say, please have mercy on us. Please help us. We are so sorry. And God appears to show lots of mercy. And even if there is judgment, I think it's for our own good. That it's for your own good, but it's more like, well, I'll just speak about my own examples. When I suffer some consequences of my behavior, I'm really saddened. I feel ashamed, which is an inflated sense of self. But afterwards, I am so thankful to realize God loves me so much. He wanted me to experience that because that's where the real change happens a lot of times. And that's what it is like a lot with addiction. People feel so ashamed of themselves and they just have to get to a place to get over themselves. See, the heart of addiction recovery is me shrinking down, dying to self, and allowing God's power to become bigger. So there is a Bible verse which the 12 steppers really talked a lot about. It's in the book of James and in the book of Isaiah, but it says that God gives grace to the humble, but he is opposed to the proud. So what does that mean? Well, grace is power. It's the power of the Holy Spirit. Let's not confuse it with something from Martin Luther that was made up, of this unmerited favor, and it's kind of results in like a ticket to get out of hell, kind of like the game of Monopoly. I get out of jail because what Christ did on the cross. No, grace, prior to 1500, grace always meant, there was no confusion on this, grace always meant the Holy Spirit. So a 12 stepper has a right when they say, the grace of God, I'm 2 days sober or 20 years sober. That power of the Holy Spirit infusing their life makes it easy to stay sober. People will go, really? Like you're using words like easy. Well, if you go to page 84 of the AA book, it says we've ceased fighting anything or anybody, dash, even alcohol, or food, or spending, or lusting, or trying to fix the world. For by this time sanity will have returned. We'll seldom be interested in liquor or any of those other things. If tempted, we recoil from it as from a hot flame. We react sanely and normally, and we will find that a new attitude towards liquor has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. That is the miracle of it. We are not fighting it, neither are we. Hello to the person who just said hello. Neither are we fighting it, nor are we. Oh, it's funny. It's nice to have. Hi, Josh from Texas. It's really good to see you. It's a nice interruption. We're neither fighting it, nor are we. Well, I'm going to get the book. That's all. And this will relate to where we're going with this. So on the bottom of page 84, it says, and we've ceased fighting anything or anyone, dash, even alcohol. So that's place, even the world. For by this time, sanity will have returned. We'll seldom be interested in liquor or any of our addictions. If tempted, we recoil from it as from a hot flame. We react sanely and normally, and we will find that this has happened automatically. We will see that a new attitude towards liquor or fixing the world has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. That is the miracle of it. We're not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. We feel as though we've been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. We have not even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed. It does not exist for us. We are neither cocky nor are we afraid. That is our experience. That is how we react so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. So think first addiction, which we've been kind of hinting at. How many of us who are in 12 steps or been in treatment or not in treatment who have this experience where the person stops overeating easily without any thought or effort on their part? They've been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. They have not even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed. It does not exist for us. We are neither cocky nor are we afraid, not afraid of using again. Same thing with heroin, same thing with compulsive sexuality or compulsive spending. So how do you get that state? Actually, by experiencing the 12 steps. And in doing that, you work the steps. And when you work the steps, then you get this gift of sobriety, the state of serenity. So with the events in the world of things that are happening, like anything from masks. I can't stand, people that are very angry about masks, that the world is, they're taking away our freedoms, which I think there's some aspects to this. The other side is we got to wear a mask to protect other people. There are people thinking masks are going to protect themselves, which they really don't. An N95 would be your best bet, and goggles. But what it does do is I wear a mask to protect others. And so then you could have people who really think this through, and maybe they start getting judgmental, but they start to go, well, so you're not going to wear a mask, so it means you really don't care about me. What you care about is your own American civil liberties, but I can just die from the coronavirus. So you can see we could easily have polar opposites. What I bring this up is that it says we can have that place of neutrality, safe and protected. We can actually say, like, I'm a politicaholic, a politicaholic. Say, like, I'm addicted to politics and what's going on in the world. And I know that I'm right because of my side. You can use the steps for this. I'm powerless over my friends on the other political spectrum. My life is unmanageable, or what's going on the side, or I'm powerless over my own political party. Um, I'm powerless over what's going to happen with America. Are we going to become socialistic, communistic? Are we going to have a dictatorship? What's going on there? This could cause subtle unrest in our souls, and then we stop sleeping, and then we start gaining weight without knowing it, and start getting heart disease, you see, because of stress. Um, I could go on and on with aspects to that. Say, like, there's riots, or there's political, not political, I'm tired of that word. I don't have a job. I don't have any money. What am I going to do? I recommend the Debtors Anonymous program. It's you may not have been a debtor, but it's really good at helping you use the steps to help you find an income coming in. Because if you tap into this power of God and say, God, I'm powerless over my finances. I am powerless over, I don't have a job. I don't know what to do. Please help me. God is good. God will start to help. And I think that's really important to do. Is there good from all these events? There could be good. How so? Well, it's humbling me. I think science is great. I have family members that are scientists. The thing about science is it only goes so far. Psychology can only go so far. Let's talk about fears. There's a lot of fear out there. The AA book talks about we are fearful because we are relying on our own power. It always boils down to that I have a script. What if I'm tempted to be fearful of a neurological disease like Parkinson's, Lewy body dementia, Alzheimer's, MS? What if I'm afraid of getting heart disease, cancer, diabetes? What if I'm afraid of having a stroke, a nervous breakdown? It goes on and on and on. Have I been tempted to think about all these things? Sure, I have been. It seems if you're sensitive and you work with people with those issues, you're going to have some thought, well, I hope I don't get that. The moment I say, I hope I don't get that, is me having a plan. Maybe God wants me in his loving kindness towards me to experience one of those. People go, well, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right. But what about the people that have those and that know God? See, so surrender is simple, but it's a warfare. I mean, it's letting go of my life and saying, God, I want you to run my life. So step 4, actually, I have to run. I love you guys. I have to go spend some time. I don't have to go spend some time with my daughter, but this time just flew by. I will do a second part of this, and we'll go through steps 4, 5, 6. But it's been a pleasure. I'm really happy to try to catch up, and I'll try to stick to Tuesday nights unless I come up with a better time. A shout out to our new friend Josh from Texas. Really good to meet you there. I will read some of your comments when I'm not talking and maybe address those in another way. You take care, and love you guys, and stay safe, and just one day at a time.